Evening and welcome to Sun Middle Temple. We are so happy you've joined us. My name is Alba and I use she, her pronouns. This is our first May observance, and I'm so happy you are here. As always, the service is recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel. I am excited to announce that we have 3 ongoing events, including our community art project, our play Oedipus Rex, and our virtual field trip. Definitely come and join all of us for these events. We'll open today with our opening words, which will appear on the slide behind you. Please read along at home or listen as I read the words aloud. We welcome you into the light of the gods and light this flame in celebration. May its brightness symbolize our connection to the gods and the natural world. May you join us in this community of faith, cherishing love and with open hearts. So, as this is the month of May and most people are graduating during this month, for all different grades, our theme this month is coming of age. And our readings today are Daedalus and Icarus from Ovid's Metamorphoses, translated by Henry T. Riley, Agamemnon, a section of Agamemnon by Aeschylus, translated by Gilbert Murray, and a new reading that we haven't done before, a section from the Song of Roland, translated by C.K. Moncrief. It's French, I think it's Moncrief. So we'll start today with Daedalus and Icarus from Ovid's Metamorphoses. Daedalus, weary of his exile, finds me... Sorry, hold on. This text has an annoying section where it gives background information on the story. We're skipping that. My bad. In the meantime, Daedalus, abhorring Crete and his prolonged exile, and inflamed by the love of his native soil, was enclosed there by the sea. Although Minos, he said, may beset the land and the sea, still the skies at least are open. By that way we will go. Let Minos possess everything besides. He does not sway the air. Thus he spoke, and he turned his thoughts to arts unknown till then, and varied the course of nature. For he arranges feathers in order, beginning from the least, the shorter one succeeding the longer, so that you might suppose they grew on an incline. Thus does the rustic pipe sometimes rise by degrees, with unequal straws. Then he binds those in the middle with thread, and the lowermost ones with wax, and thus ranged with gentle curvatures, he bends them, so as to imitate real wings of birds. His son Icarus stands together with him, and ignorant that he is handling the source of danger to himself, with a smiling countenance, he sometimes catches at the feathers which the shifting breeze is ruffling. And at other times he softens the yellow wax with his thumb, and, by his playfulness, he retards the wondrous work of his father. After the finishing hand was put to the workman himself poised his own body upon the 2 wings, and hung suspended in the beaten air. He provided his son with them as well, and said to him, Icarus, I recommend thee to keep the middle tract, lest if thou shouldest go too low, the water should clog thy wings. If too high, the sun of fire should scorch them. Fly between both, and I bid thee neither look at Boots nor Helis, nor the drawn sword of Orion. Under my guidance take thy way. At the same time, he delivered him rules for flying, and fitted the untried wings to his shoulders. Amid his work and admonitions, the cheeks of the old man were wet, and the hands of the father tremble. He gives kisses to his son, never again to be repeated, and raised upon his wings, he flies before, and is concerned for his companion, just as the bird which has led forth her tender from the lofty nest into the air. And he encourages him to follow, and instructs him in the fatal art, and both moves his own wings himself, and looks back on those of his son. A person, while he is angling for fish with his quivering rod, or the shepherd leaning on his crook, or the ploughman on the plough-tail, when he beholds them is astonished, and believes them to be divinities, who thus can cleave the air. And now Samos, sacred to Juno, and Delos, and Paros were left behind to the left hand. On the right were Lebynthus and Calymene, fruitful in honey, when the boy began to be pleased with the bolder flight, and forsook his guide, and, touched with a desire of reaching heaven, pursued his course higher still. The vicinity of the scorching sun softened the fragrant wax that fastened his wings. The wax was melted. He shook his naked arms, and, wanting his oar-like wings, he caught no more air. His face, too, as he called on the name of his father, was received in the azure water which received its name from him. But the unhappy father, now no more a father, said, Icarus, where art thou? In what spot shall I seek thee, Icarus? Did he say, when he beheld his wings in the waters, then he cursed his own arts, and he buried his body in a tomb. And the land was called from there the name of him buried there. As he was laying the body of his unfortunate son in the tomb, a prattling partridge beheld him from a branching holm oak, and by its nose testified its delight. 'Twas then but a single bird of its kind, and never seen in former years, and lately made a bird was grievous reproof, Daedalus, to thee. For ignorant of the decrees of fate, his sister had entrusted her son to be instructed by him, a boy who has passed twice 6 birthdays, with a mind eager for instruction. 'Twas he too who took the backbones, observed in the middle of a fish, for example, and cut a continued row of teeth in iron with a sharp edge, and thus discovered the use of the saw. He was the first too that bound 2 arms of iron to one center, that being divided and of equal length, the one part might stand fixed, and the other might describe a circle. Daedalus was envious and threw him headlong from the sacred citadel of Minerva, falsely pretending that he had fallen by accident. But Pallas, who favors ingenuity, received him and made him a bird, and in the middle of the air he flew upon wings. Yet the vigor of his genius, once so active, passed into his wings and into his feet. His name, too, remained the same as before. Yet this bird does not raise aloft its body aloft, nor make its nest in the branches and the lofty tops of trees, but flies near the ground and lays its eggs in hedges, and mindful of its former fall, it dreads the higher regions. So now we'll move on to Iphigenia, who, if you don't know, is the daughter of Agamemnon, who, according to mythology, is sacrificed so that all of the soldiers can make their way to Troy, and so that the wind will blow after the soldiers offend Artemis. And winds blew from Strymon river, unharbored, starving, winds of waste endeavor, man blinding, pitiless to cord and bulwark. And the waste of days was made long, more long, till the flower of Argos was aghast and withered. Then through the storm rose the war seer's song, and told of medicine that should tame the tempest, but bow the princes to a dire wrong. Then Artemis, he whispered her name. He named the name, and the brothers kings they shook in the hearts of them, and smote on the earth their staves, and the tears came. But the king, the elder, hath found the voice and spoken. A heavy doom, sure, if God's will were broken. But to slay mine own child, whom my house delighteth, is that not heavy? That her blood should flow on her father's hand, hard beside an altar. My path is sorrow wheresoever I go. Shall Agamemnon fail his ships and people, and the hosts of Hellas melt as melts the snow? They cry, they thirst for a death that shall break the spell. For virgin's blood 'tis a rite of old, men tell, and they burn with longing. O God, may the end be well. The yoke of must be he bowed to him slowly, and a strange wind within his bosom tossed. A wind of dark thought, unclean, unholy, and he rose up daring to the uttermost. For men are boldened by a blindness, straying towards base desire, which brings grief hereafter. Yea, and itself is grief. So this man hardened to his own child slaying, as help to avenge him for a woman's laughter, and brings his ship relieved. Her father, father, her sad cry that lingered, her virgin heart's breath they held, all as naught, those brawn-clad witnesses and battle-hungered. And there they prayed, and when the prayer was wrought, he charged the young men to uplift and bind her, as ye lift a wild kid high above the altar. Fierce huddling, forward, fallen, clinging sore to the rope that wrapped her. Yea, he bids them hinder the sweet mouth's utterance, the cries that falter, his curse for evermore. With violence and a curb's voiceless wrath, her stole of saffron then to the ground she threw, and her eye with an arrow of pity found its path to each man's heart that slew. A face in a picture, striving amazedly, the little maid who danced at her father's board, the innocent voice, man's love never came nigh, who joined to his her little paean cry. When the third cup was poured, what came thereafter I saw not neither tell. But the craft of Calchas failed not. 'Tis written, he who suffered shall learn, the law holdeth well. And that which is to be, ye will know at last. Why weep for the hour? For come it shall, as out of darkness dawn. Only make good from all this evil flower. So praised this heart of Argos, this frail tower, guarding the land alone. Okay, and we will now move on to the Song of Roland. And while I Googled the French pronunciations for a lot of these words, I will probably get them wrong. I did try, but I was not very good at figuring them out. And to be clear, this is a French epic, and they are discussing expelling the Muslims from France and Spain. So whenever they use the word pagan in this, that's what they're referring to, the Muslims in France and Spain. Then Oliver has drawn his mighty sword, as his comrade had bidden and implored. In knightly wise the blade to him has shrewd. Justin he strikes, that Iron Valley's lord. All of his head has down the middle shorn. The carcass sliced, the broidered sark has torn. The good saddle that was old adorned, and through the spine has sliced that pagan's horse. Dead in the field before his feet they fall. Says Roland, now my brother I you call. He'll love us for such blows, our emperor. On every side, monsieur, you'll hear them roar. That Count Gerens sate on his horse sorrel, on past surf was Gerers there his friend. They loosed their reins together, spurred and sped, and go to strike a pagan to Mosul. On one the shield, on hauberk the other fell, and their two spears went through the carcass well. A fallow field amidst they've thrown him dead. I do not know, I never heard it said, which of the two was nimbler as they went. Espervis was there, son of Borel, and him there slew anglers of Burdel. And the archbishop he slew them Siglorel, the enchanter who before had been in hell, where Jupiter bore him by a magic spell. Then Turpin says, to us he's forfeited, and answers Roland's, the culvert is bested. Such blows, brother Oliver, I like well. The battle grows more hard and harder yet. Franks and pagans with marvelous onset, each other strike and each himself defends. So many shafts blood-stained and shattered, so many flags and ensigns tattered. So many Franks lose their young lust ahead, who'll see no more their mothers nor their friends, nor hosts of France that in the pass attend. Charles the Great weeps therefore with regret. What profits that? No succor shall they get. Evil serve us that day, Guins rendered yet. The Saragosse going to his own to sell, after he lost his members and his head. In court at Aix, to gallows tree condemned, and 30 more with him of his kindred were hanged, a thing they never did expect. Now marvellous and weighty the combat, right well they strike, Oliver and Roland, 1,000 blows come from the Archbishop's hand. The dozen peers are nothing short of that, with one accord join battle all the Franks. Pagans are slain by 100, by 1,000. Who flies not then from death has no warrant. Will he or nill, foregoes the allotted span. The Franks have lost the foremost of their band. They'll see no more their fathers nor their clans, nor Charlemagne wherein the pass he stands. Torment arose right marvellous in France. Tempest there was, of wind and thunder black, with rain and hail so much could not be spanned. Fell thunderbolts often on every hand. And verily the earth quaked in answer back, from Saint Michael of Peril unto Sand. From Ben Scun to the harbour of Whitsand, no house stood there but straight walls its straight its walls must crack. In full midday the darkness was so grand, save the sky split, no light was in the land. Behold these things with terror every man, and many said, We in the judgment stand, at the end of time is presently at hand. They spake no truth, they did not understand. 'Twas the great day of mourning for Roland. The Franks strike on, their hearts are good and stout. Pagans are slain 1,000-fold in crowds. Left of 50 are not 2,000 now. Says the Archbishop, our men are very proud. No man on earth has more, no better found. In chronicles of Franks is written down what vassalage he had, our emperor. Then through the field they go, their friends seek out, and their eyes weep with grief and pain profound. For kinsmen dear by hearty friendship bound, King Marsilies and his great host draw round. So, if you hadn't noticed, unfortunately, most of these stories are about young people dying as soon as they crossed into adulthood, or even before they could reach it. This is probably mostly reflective of the time period when these stories were written, before modern medicine, and when it was very common for children to die at these young ages, and when there was a lot more warfare, at least in these parts of the world. But it does let you see what these cultures thought of teens and what teens changing into adults. So Icarus is your classic teenage boy. He, makes reckless decisions, and goes out to the edges. And I know we covered Aristotle, in March, and he does not stay on the middle path as his father recommends, but reaches out to the edges and thus results in his own demise. Let's see. Iphigenia is about to take on the responsibilities of a Greek woman and enter adulthood, and all of the men in Song of Roland are young lords who have just become adults and are taking on this responsibility of this holy war. So coming of age in each of these stories is still about taking on adult responsibilities and generally fulfilling the role of an adult in society. In Icarus, it's about, the symbolism is about being a moderate person, and continuing, this path of moderation. Iphigenia is just about to cross into adulthood and take on all of her responsibilities, and we never get to see her do that. Now, our modern conceptions of childhood and adulthood are vastly different than these ancient cultures, but we still, help our children into the world through adult responsibility and knowledge. So we'll talk more specifically about knowledge in the next portion of the observance, but I want you to consider and think about for now what responsibilities today help change you from a child or a teenager into adult, and why do you think we chose these responsibilities as a society? And what do other societies in the world value about different responsibilities? For, in other cultures, it's common for you to live with your parents until you're married. So you might live with them into your mid-20s or 30s. Why do we have kids leave the nest so early here? all of these, different conceptions about adults and what exactly is it that makes someone an adult and coming of age. So we will now move into the ritual portion of the observance, and I will play the video. We leave this offering for our gods to symbolize our connection and devotion. We gift this rock to symbolize the stability of the gods in our world. We gift this water to accept the flow of our lives. We welcome life and bless our offerings with oil to share our riches. We embrace our connection to each other and the world and celebrate our revival. Okay, we will now move into the closing words, which hopefully will appear on the slide behind you. Yes, they did. As we move out into the world, let us remember our community of faith. Cherish love and open your heart as you walk through life. Hold dear the light of the gods and our connection with the natural world. Go forth in celebration and carry the light of connection within your heart. We'll now move into coffee hour, and I will turn off the recording.